at the beginning of it all, where did you find your way into high-level athletics?
Started wrestling, playing football, tackle football when I was 7 years old. And wrestling kind of became a year-round sport for me. I would hit all the freestyle, folk style, plus, the club and whatever else, like the school. So I was probably wrestling 9 months out of the year and got good pretty quickly. By 11 and 12, I'm wrestling for, I'm top 5 in the nation, basically. And then loved football, good football player in high school, ended up getting Nevada Defensive Player of the Year, and I thought I wanted to play football. You're on that high. We won everything there was to win. Our running back was Offensive Player of the Year. I was Defensive Player of the Year. We were undefeated, won state, the whole deal. And I was off that high, and so, but I was like, 195, middle linebacker that ran like a 4.8.
At what age were you 195?
Would that be like 18?
Good for you.
17.
Wow. Bigger than I was at 18.
Yeah, way bigger.
Then, from there, I'm like, okay, I want to play football. And on paper, I wasn't very appealing. I wasn't overly fast. I wasn't overly big. So my coach was like, let's get film into coach's hands and all that. And we tried that and had a few like little kind of deals with like Boise State. Then I was going to go to a JC. They were number 1 in the country at that time. And then I went to one last wrestling tournament. It's the first place winners from every state get together, and I ended up getting
one
third.
Small note, bro. When making expressions,
Yeah.
avoid tapping or banging or
Okay.
anything because it'll go into the replay.
Okay,
But
cool.
Please continue.
Yeah, so I went to one last wrestling tournament, and it was like first place finisher from every state, right? And we get together, and I ended up getting third, and I was already getting recruited for wrestling, but then I started getting like heavily recruited. I went up to Oregon, University of Oregon, really good wrestling program, facilities and all that, but it just wasn't the right vibe for me up there in Eugene. Then I came down to ASU, and I was like, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Love the people, love the culture down here and everything.
Yeah, what was it
program.
about ASU, given that you had the options to go virtually anyway?
I mean, you walk down Palm Walk, and there's a million blonde girls in little
Yeah, there is.
Daisy Duke shorts. That wasn't bad, but the people, right? I came down and immediately meshed with the coaching staff and then the guys on the team. They take you out on your like, recruiting trip, and we had a great time. And from then on, I kind of made up my mind I was going to wrestle. So came over here, redshirted my first year. Just got better. I was beating the 197 at that point in practice, and the next 4 years started. 3-time Pac-10 champ, 2-time All-American. And then I was kind of over being an athlete, I thought. We had guys like Cain Velasquez that was our heavyweight at ASU. CB Dalloway was our, 185-pounder. I was 197. And we actually had, I think, 7 guys from that class end up in the UFC at some point. So Cain knew he wanted to fight right away, and I was kind of like, I want to see what else is out there.
At this time, how old was the UFC?
I mean, we're talking, 2006 right now. So it was somewhat early, but it was around and established and not like the VHS, underground stuff. It was out there.
Yeah.
But it was somewhat early. Chuck Liddell was still fighting all that. So, we went cornered Cain Velasquez down in Mexico. The guy pulled out, wouldn't fight him. I'm like, well, maybe I want to train at least and like keep myself in shape and learn like boxing and striking, and went in, and I actually we were doing really well, just pure wrestling, and one guy was fighting Matt Hamill. Jesse Ford was fighting him, and we were going in helping Jesse, and I'm like, man, I'm doing pretty good. He's like, maybe I'll just get in and train, maybe give it a shot, I don't know. And I went out and got I want to put myself out there. I've never had like a real job, and for me, I was like, what's something that you don't want to do? I was like, sales, right? So go out and get like a business sales job, and I was doing pretty well, and the manager like brought me in, and she's like, keep working hard like this. In 3 years, you can become the training manager. And I hated that, dude. I was like, that's what I have to look forward to, And that was kind of the deal where I was like, you know what? Now's the time to like go all in. I wasn't married, didn't have kids or anything like that. Nothing holding me down.
Yeah.
So I said, screw it. And, I kind of milked that job because you didn't have to be there. you're supposed to be out, going around cold calling.
Getting sales, yeah.
And so, I was getting some training in, doing whatever, and kind of rode that out until I couldn't anymore, basically. I would just make friends with everybody, and it had a kind of high turnover rate there. And so they'd give me all their leads, and I would just hit those, basically.
Nice.
And so it enabled me, to make some money, but at the same time kind of like transition into this MMA world. And then we had a sponsor come by and he was like, hey, we'll give you a monthly stipend or whatever to quit your job and train full time. And I'm thinking like, cool, like how much we getting or whatever. He's like, $1,500 a month. Oof. And I'm like, So at that point I was like, you know what? You said you were going to go all in, and I did. So I quit my job, and when you're fighting early on, you're making like $200, like $500 maybe.
Yeah,
I made $2,000 one time. It was a
starving,
right? Yeah. But yeah, went into like credit card debt and all that, just trying to get to the big show. There was there was like light at the end of the tunnel. Like I wanted to be in the UFC, and I knew I can get there. I just had to put in that time, that year and a half where I had to go fight in Mexico and Globe, Arizona, and whatever. And so I did, racked up like $7,000 credit card debt, and finally got on the Ultimate Fighter. My buddy CB Dalloway was on the year before, put in a good word. They were looking for good wrestlers, and I went in there and did like I didn't have to try out, but I did an interview. And we walk in, conference table, like 10, UFC executives, Ultimate Fighter executives, and
Dana or
not Dana,
Chad,
just yeah. And then they just started making fun of my buddy CB, and I was kind of doing the same. I'm like, yeah, he's an idiot, blah blah, blah, just shooting the shit. Then they're like, all right, get the fuck out of here. And I walked out, and then a week later, like, hey, you're in. So came back and to Vegas, and in that house for 6 weeks with no TV, no nothing, no phones.
I often wondered how accurate that was, how real because they say they do that, but do they really do that? They really lock you up
100%.
without phones, no nothing?
100%.
What's the logic behind doing that?
Drama.
Yeah.
They want people to be in a house together and start freaking out. You have no other outlets.
They want to create drama.
They want to create
not
drama.
avoid drama. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes for interesting TV. It certainly does.
Yeah, so
who was that guy who kept yelling, I want to bang, bro, or I want to bang? Much later. The famous, the viral. I can't even remember what or
It might
why.
even been maybe later.
I think
I
it
was on
was
season
later.
8.
Yeah, it was later.
Yeah.
Definitely later.
I feel like that's pretty much every season.
But there's
Yeah,
so
there's
much.
always
There's
an
so
idiot.
much drama on
We
that
had
show.
an idiot, Junie Browning, on. He's a 155. So we were a mix of 205s and 155.
Interesting.
And he was like one of the worst
Squirrely guys.
reality TV guy there was. But we had fun, and I mean we played jokes on each other. Like we were still in their other teams, like Fruit Bowl you get from Costco, that big one.
Yeah.
And so they ended up pissing in it.
Oh,
That's brutal. Then our one buddy was like, his sushi kept on getting taken, right? And so he went in the bathroom, did a little business, whacked off on a plate, and dipped it in that. Put it back and packaged it up, and the dude ate it.
Yeah, that do it for me.
So that's
I'd be out.
That's the kind of shit you get into, right? Other guys were like married and stuff and had kids, and they want to get back. I'm like, I'm here for this. Like, I'm gonna win this whole deal, and I get my mind right, and end up winning the Ultimate Fighter, and then from there on out,
So you won season 8.
Yeah,
of the Ultimate Fighter,
season 8, and then
cool.
You go from winning that to like right back to the deep end of the UFC.
For those who don't know, how does one win the Ultimate Fighter? You beat every other participant in the entire house?
So it's like a tournament, right? And then just like your regular bracket, and you go through, and then they save the finals till later. So you go through. I made it to the finals, as did Vinny Magalesh, the other guy that was fighting. And then later on, they have the season finale, and they have a bigger card, and end up winning that. And
if you win, are you automatically inducted into the UFC? Or are you automatically put on contract?
Yep. So you get a contract, and a lot of the guys did on that season because there were a lot of good fighters.
So more than one can, not just the winner.
Yeah, they can kind of pick and choose.
Got it.
And the guy that I beat, he got a contract. A lot of guys did. And then you're on that high, and then you realize you're like, okay, now I'm the low man on total pole.
Now
right?
it's the pros.
And then from there, I went on in the UFC. What was it? I was 15-5, had 20 fights in the UFC. Just right there, top 5, pretty much for 10 years, top 3, and then I got an offer offered a better contract to go to Bellator. Mm-hmm. And I had 20 fights there. I had nothing to prove. I'm like, I'm going to go where it makes sense financially. So I went over to Bellator.
Because we did a census with a lot of our audience to ask questions about what it is that you went through, and specifically that transition was brought up multiple times. Why the choice to go with Bellator? Why the choice to transition from the UFC to that?
Pretty much purely financially.
Okay.
You know, I was getting 4 to 5 times just right off the bat what I was making in the UFC.
Wow.
And then I kept betting on myself and, you know, not taking different, you know, contract offers that were, you know, given to me. Like when I fought Fedor, and I already had the light heavyweight belt, and I was fighting for the heavyweight belt. Mm-hmm. We did that whole heavyweight Grand Prix. Fedor, Emelianenko, and I made it to the finals. Mm-hmm. My whole contract was up after that fight. Mm-hmm. And so they're kind of trying to slow play us a little bit. Hey, you want to take this or whatever, sign a new 6-fight contract. We're like, nope, we'll just see what happens. Mm. But if I lost, then I'd have to come begging back and be like, I'll take less than what you offered.
Yeah.
But I went out there and knocked him out in 34 seconds, and then we kind of got to write our own check, you know. So a lot of it was just kind of betting on myself. And that transition from going from UFC to Bellator, you know, for me it was like, okay, I had 20 fights in the biggest promotion in the world. I'm now looking at more like financially, and is it going to feel as big? Am I, you know, a lot of questions go through your mind. But then somebody got hurt, and I filled in and fought for the light heavyweight championship in Madison Square Garden, my first fight, and fought Phil Davis, who I fought the UFC before, and ended up beating him. And then from then on, I've pretty much been fighting title fights in Bellator.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Aside from the initial pay, which, as you said, it's about 4 or 5 times, what other highlighted differences, for those who don't know, are there between the UFC and the Bellator?
They're different organizations, right? The UFC's the biggest one. They have the most marketing dollars and everything like that. Mm-hmm. You know, I think if you go through all the different organizations, you know, the best guy in the world isn't always in the UFC, but it's a corporate business, you know, the UFC. Whereas Bellator is kind of, you know, I made friends with everybody. We're all kind of close, kind of a bigger family, like the executives, people that work there. And it was a good time, you know, plus financially I'm doing better in that organization. I'm not saying UFC was bad and I wasn't doing well there, but I knew what I could get, and that's why I did leave. And it was fun. I got to do different things. They were open to different things, me going up to heavyweight, doing cross-promotion stuff.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. I was ready for something new.
Bellator was more open and flexible with that than the UFC.
Yeah.
In the UFC, how does that work? You got guys like Conor McGregor who, you know, transitioned up, transitioned down. Do you get to set the stage as the fighter saying, hey, I think I'm done with this weight division. I want to go down or I want to go up? Or are you sort of cast and set in stone and you really don't have that type of flexibility when you're fighting there?
I mean, you can always kind of like, hey, I can't make this weight anymore. I got to go up. But if you're the champ, that's where it's kind of, there's some difference there, right? Because you have the 155-pound belt, and you're like, oh, I'm done. I want to go up to 170. Yeah. It's not always going to work because you have guys in line waiting to challenge you for that 155-pound belt. You know, so once you're a champ like that. But yeah, I mean, if you can't make the weight or if you want to go down, they're pretty open to that.
Yeah.
But if you have, you know, the championship, you have the belt, and you're holding up a whole weight division just because you want to be a double champ, whatever. Depends who you are, but that usually isn't going to work the first go around.
Caliber of fighters. Is there any difference between the UFC and Bellator?
Yeah, I think depth wise, you know, UFC has a bigger roster, and yeah, definitely depth wise, there's tougher guys in the UFC. But if you go to the top guys, a lot of time, who knows? It's kind of a pick 'em kind of fight. Some weight classes, yeah, UFC has, you know, a lot better. They have more depth, so the champ is more than likely would be the Bellator champ. There's other weight divisions where you're like, I think the Bellator guy might get him.
Yeah.
I want to touch on your background in wrestling a little bit.
Yep.
What is it about having a base in wrestling that people coming from that background have such a leg up when it comes to MMA?
That's a good question. I think that work ethic, that dedication that we've been doing our whole life, you know, it's a different mentality, especially guys that have gone through college wrestling. You know, we know how to put in the work to get that desired result at the end. You know, so for us, like, okay, I have a fight coming up. You know, we're going to train our ass off, only way we know how. And when you're young, it's great. It's just like balls to the wall, go, 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 go. I got smarter now being, with recovery and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's definitely the mentality. And obviously, you have the skill set of wrestling and you can dictate where the fight goes.
Yeah.
Usually, and that's a big part of it. But I think it's all just the mentality of a wrestler that's been through it, that's cut weight every single week for like 3-4 months. Where these guys coming from jiu-jitsu or striking background, never really done it, maybe cut weight once, twice a year. I see in like jiu-jitsu and these other sports a little more like, it's like lackadaisical a little bit.
Okay.
That's why everybody hates a college wrestler when they come into the BJJ room and they're like, calm the fuck down. Right? Because it's just one speed, one mentality.
Yeah.
And I think that just transitions over to mixed martial arts like perfectly. They
Sure.
know how to train. They know how to show up in shape. They have the skill set no matter what. If they don't know how to throw a correct punch, they can take you down, and everybody can throw a punch on the ground. So they start up here, where if you brought in a Muay Thai guy and had him learn 15 years of wrestling in a training camp in 2 months, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's a harder skill to master. Being a
Yeah.
high level wrestler is more difficult than being a high level striker.
Yeah, and if you have a high level wrestler you bring in and you teach him a little submission defense, and with punches, they're probably going to do all right. If you bring in a jiu-jitsu guy and be like, all right, don't get taken down.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Who would you say is the top, two questions? Who would you say is the top striker that you ever faced in your career?
Well, I fought John Jones. He uses like distance really well.
Yeah.
He's not the most like flashy technical striker, but you don't have to be in MMA. So I'd probably say him, just as far as like you trying to get into that right distance for you, and he's not letting you.
And for the outside person listening in, you're describing the length at which he can punch. He can reach you much further away.
Yep, and then he has, he's a wrestler himself, and so you get in too close, he can take you down. So there's a lot of factors going in on that. Guy in Bellator, Vadim Nemkov, very, very slick striker.
Can you look him up? Good luck spelling it. How do you
how do you
spell that
spell
guy's
that?
name?
Nemkov, N-E-M.
N-E-M? Vladimir.
There it is,
Nemkov.
first one.
Sweet.
Nemo.
Oh, that didn't.
That ain't it.
Yeah, John Jones. Did you get any eye pokes from John Jones? Because I know he extends his fingers a lot.
I don't think I did.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean that's what he keeps that distance really good, and he has good knees and all that too.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you remember Do you remember your training camp?
Nemkov maybe.
Do you remember your training camp in particular with John Jones? Do you feel like you're super ready for that fight, or was it rushed? Looking back at that.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like we were young in this sport.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, just try to get a lanky dude.
Yeah.
Now that we know, and now in my fights, I try to bring in a guy to emulate that opponent.
100%.
And so, no, I mean, we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants back in the day.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, train hard, show up, and see what happens.
Back then, did John Jones have the same, figure as he did now? Was he still back then considered like, oh crap, this is the GOAT? Or
no, I mean he was a big boy. So I fought him right before he won the title. So we fought, and then he fought Shogun, and won the title.
Okay.
Yeah, and then went out on his big run. So that's one of the things too. You're like, you never know who you're fighting.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, you're all down, you lost, whatever.
And it can
then
change.
the guy goes and wins like 30 fights in a row, and never lost again.
You feel a little better about yourself.
A little bit,
Yeah.
not too much, but a little bit.
It also seems like a little bit of chess in the dark when you're picking your opponents, and because I mean we can just use John Jones because why not?
Yep.
At the very last minute, he could get popped for peds, and then all of a sudden he can't fight, and now the fighter changes.
Yep.
How fluid does your training regimen have to be based on the opponents that you spar with and prep for your fights, understanding that, hey, this actually might switch at the last minute, or like how just taking a fighter who's a better striker than you, do you pick people to spar with that are better strikers than you to get ready for that?
Yeah, you try to. For me, I don't want to be on the defensive side most of the time, meaning like I'm not really too worried about what he's going to do. I want to implement my game plan. And so, yeah, if you're fighting a good striker, you want to get good strikers in there. For me, I have a Brazilian head coach, and we have a good pipeline to Brazil, and so I'll bring in different Brazilians for training camps now to emulate size. Is he good on the ground? We'll get a jiu-jitsu guy. Is he a good striker? That kind of deal. Is he all around? And so that's a big part of it. But I like to kind of go in there and be like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be aware that he has whatever, a left high kick that's real nasty, or he has a submission. He's always trying to jump on a guillotine or something. But I don't want to be caught in that world of being like reactive.
Interesting. So you go in with the mentality that your strategy is offense, much more than defense.
Yep.
Got it. Has that always been the case for you? Is that how you would describe your fighting style?
Yeah, pretty much. I want to get in there and like, I've won a lot of fights just being tenacious and going in there and like, whatever, taking a dude down, wearing on him, boom, 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 ground and pound, and I can feel him kind of wilt in like second and third, and then I'm like, oh, I have this, it's gonna be done pretty soon, and sure enough, boom, get a stoppage, ground and pound, or whatever it is, knockout. But going in at our level, fighting for championships, that it's going to be hell first 2 rounds, but who can keep going at that pace? So I try to set a pace where you're either going to wilt and be done, or you're going to be dog shit tired. We both are, but who can push through that?
How significant is the difference between a 3-round fight and like a title fight for 5 rounds?
Oh, it's big. You try not to, like in training camp, like think about it, whatever. Because in the fight, you're just in that fight, right? And you're like, okay, it's 3rd round. I got, 2.5 more to go, whatever. But training for a 5-round fight is different. Training for a 3-round fight, and I've been fighting 5 rounds since like 2017.
Wow.
So I had a couple 3-round fights like sprinkled in because of like tournament stuff. I was like, do I even need to train? Like a freeze. Like 15 minutes, but 25 minutes of fighting. You're in there for 29 minutes in the cage if it goes the whole time. Wow. That's like a sitcom. You're fighting.
That's the best description I've ever heard of a fight. It's
honestly,
like a sitcom.
People got like 30 minutes of fighting, basically. I mean, you have your, it's 29 minutes. You're in the cage with 4 1-minute breaks in between rounds. So 25 minutes, like you're balls to the wall. And then you got to kind of do like, all right, because I fought here in Arizona, I fought a tough Russian, Moldovsky, and strong. He was like a hybrid heavyweight. He was like 238, fast, strong. And I go out there and I saw him kind of warming up. He was kind of blitzing a little bit, in open workouts and stuff. And I'm like, oh, if he does that, I'm going to throw the right hand over the top right when he's running in. Sure enough, he like blitzed me and I threw it and boom, just rock him. And this was like 20 seconds in a 5-round fight. So I followed up and put another one right on his shoulder, right hand. Boom! He slumps over, and we get into like a little clinch and whatever. So at that point, you got to know, like, do I keep going and blow my load in the first minute, or do I reserve a little bit? Am I going to be done after this? 2 minutes of chaos right at the beginning of the fight, and I still have 23 minutes left. So that's kind of the deal you have to do too. And in 5-round fights, you'll see a lot of guys like the first, second round, they're like feeling each other out a little bit, And so it's kind of it's a mental thing too. Like when do you push? Like when you have a guy and the ref says, "Fight back" to the bottom guy, that means he's about to stop the fight. That means you need to just go and throw. But if it doesn't happen, you're burnt out. Your arms are so heavy. You're like, now I gotta, try to recharge. I'm tired. I'm gonna make it through.
Yeah.
It's a weird mental thing too.
More of like a marathon.
Yeah.
I'm hearing conditioning. Sorry, but go ahead.
No, I was. How much are you listening to your coaches in your corner during the actual heat of the fight? When are they trying to yell out like pacing, what to do? Are you able to?
They do, and we have like little code words and stuff like that too. But a lot of times you don't even hear them.
Yeah.
You're like, you can kind of pick out certain voices while you're going. But your body takes over and you're just doing what you're doing.
It's instinctual at that point.
Especially if you're tired. You come baback and even in between rounds they're talking to you and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's why a lot of coaches will be like, make you repeat it back.
Yeah.
Because they know that you heard them. When they're like, hey, you got to circle right. And there's nothing behind your eyes.
It goes in one ear, out the other.
So, coaches that are like, hey, what'd I say? You're like, circle right. Okay, cool.
Copy that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm hearing a lot of conditioning. When it comes to prep, and specifically I'm talking like training in the gym, what types of conditioning? Because a lot of people I'm sure are aware, professional fighters have some of the most notorious training camps, just brutal workouts.
Yep.
What types of training do you go through at the highest level to promote the kind of high intensity interval training is ultimately what you're doing to prep for your fight. What does that look like for you?
I mean, you've got to kind of do like true to form, right? Like sparring is number one. And it doesn't have to be like you're cracking each other in the face kind of sparring. It can be touch sparring, but you're grappling hard, you're wrestling hard. I think one thing that sets us apart is we do a lot of cage wrestling. And so I'm on the cage, or I have somebody on the cage, and we're going, rounds as far as we'll do a 5-minute round. And new guys coming in every minute. That's fresh.
Your team, when you say us, it's your team. Okay.
My training partners and all that, and I'm trying to survive basically. And just your arms are so heavy, and they'll have you hitting mitts on the last minute to like simulate like you just got in a heavy grappling exchange and now you're striking again. That's one of the harder things to do. And so a lot of that, 100%. I feel like you get most of that of your conditioning doing what you're going to be doing in that fight.
Yeah.
And then on outside of that, just like purely conditioning wise, we'll do some sled work. We do like hills on Saturday morning. My knees aren't the best right now, so I don't do a lot of running. I have a Peloton bike. Don't laugh. But I'll do like 1 minute up, 1 minute down for
Dana wouldn't approve of that.
30 minutes straight,
Oh, man.
and it's hard. It gets me. And then assault bike, and then we'll do simulated sparring.
You ever done the Jacob's ladder?
Yeah. Yeah, that was in our wrestling room. Yeah.
Not for me, because I've never been a pro fighter, but the guys I've trained who are, they all point to that. They're like, oh, the Jacob's ladder is a lot like grappling. Like if you just
100%.
keep going that thing for 5-minute intervals as fast as you can, that thing's tough.
Yeah, if we were late to wrestling, the lifting portion of wrestling, we had to get on that until he pulled you off. Yeah, so I know about
until
that.
he pulled you off.
So we'll do simulated sparring, which is even harder than actual sparring. So we'll have like maybe a med ball, assault bike. We'll have a guy holding pads and the ground and pound dummy, and we do like 1 minute of that, 1 minute of that, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And you get your rest, and then you have 5 rounds of that.
Yeah.
And you're smoked.
Yeah.
And so we try to hit, like, for me too, if I get used to something, I need to have like some variety, because I wouldn't say I'm like coasting, but like my body's used to that now. So I got to get something else, So if I'm pushing the sled, and I mean, that bad example, because that could always smoke you. But if I'm doing the Aerodyne bike or whatever, it's good to just mix it up weekly and throw something else in there. Different times, different, intervals, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, proper periodization is not just about, doing it because it's fun to do it. Changing up your workouts has such a lot of it is mental, just not being bored. For me, I don't want to go into the gym and do the same thing every single time. Not even close. That's why having a ton of different equipment at your disposal is really helpful.
100%.
A lot of times just to avoid boredom.
Yeah.
Just so you go in and have fun.
And that, like, going back to like when I had that sales job, I immediately missed like competing and training, right? But I've wrestled since I was 7 years old, and I was kind of over that. And then I went into MMA, and I'm like, whoa, you can train jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai. You can put them all together. Yeah. You get sick of something, train something else. That's kind of what got me and pulled me into.
That's outstanding. Transitioning now to what I know you've been working on recently, which is so incredible. So you have actually now taken the plunge into acting. Tell us about that. That's new.
Yeah, I got a random text from the director. I didn't know it was a director. He didn't preface it at all. He's just like, hey, my name's blank, and I have a question about this MMA film. So it took us like 3 weeks to connect. And then we finally did, and he called me, and then a FaceTime came through right away, and I'm like, what the hell? Who's this dude? So I take it, and he's like, oh, perfect. This is going to be awesome. Oh.
Just for seeing you?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's this about? And he's like, hey, I'm doing this movie. I've directed this big movie and blah, blah, blah. We're doing the Smash Machine movie about Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman. It was a documentary in 2002, I believe. Mm-hmm. They happened to follow Mark Kerr around. He was the next big kind of MMA athlete coming out. I think Division I, a national champion.
What era? What year is this supposed to?
Probably like 98, 99.
Okay, so early.
Early.
Yeah.
And he was killing everybody.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I recognize him.
And but then, with the cameras following around just for that, he's going to be the next big MMA star.
Yeah.
They got a look inside his life as far as like he was getting, liquid painkillers, injecting it from Mexico, doing all kinds of stuff, and he was doing it in front of the cameras and all that. And then, he was a big time heavyweight, top heavyweight, and Mark Coleman was also. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so Mark Coleman's in there. Mark Kerr goes in to the hospital for an OD. Coleman, it was his buddy, has been helping him out and all that. And then there's kind of a collision course with Kerr and Coleman that they could fight each other in the Grand Prix in Pride. And so it kind of ends there where, they're both in that tournament and Coleman goes on to win it. So anyway, I was the guy was like, "Hey, I'd love for you to try out, audition for Mark Coleman." I'm like, "Okay, let me know what to do, what's next, whatever." He sent me a script. It's the hardest scene in the movie, and we did it over Zoom the next week, and then didn't hear anything. Figured, okay, cool, didn't get it, whatever. Got a text, was like, "See you in 2 weeks," and so I was in Vancouver from like May 12th to end of July.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And filming alongside The Rock.
The Rock, Emily
Rock.
Blunt, yeah.
Wow.
It's been fun. We had fight scenes and then obviously dialogue and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a new world, but it's been fun. And what I love about MMA is like the feelings you get like before and after. The anxiety, nervousness, and all that, and then you do it. Then afterwards, you're kind of like, and I accomplished something. Kind of felt the same way. With the movie, something new. You're gonna go.
You had no background in acting.
I have no acting, zero.
Wow.
And I was gonna go get a little acting coach for a couple weeks before I went, and director's like, absolutely not.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
He wanted you raw. He wanted to see why. Any idea why? I mean,
so he did Uncut Gems, and he likes like realism. He almost wants the movie to feel like a documentary.
Okay. Yeah,
And,
that did have that feeling in Uncut
yeah.
Gems. Yeah, it's kind of like even when he stutters or when Adam Sandler says something that's kind of like mumbled,
he'll keep it in.
He
yeah.
keeps it in. Yeah.
And this
And he loves it.
based on a documentary, right?
Yep. So there is a documentary, 2002, called The Smash Machine.
The Smash Machine.
Smashing Machine.
Smashing Machine.
Yeah,
We
it's
gotta
kind of
watch
hard
that,
to find, but I'll send you a link.
Smashing Machine. Okay.
But yeah, so anyway, that movie's pretty. It's following that documentary pretty closely, and we got to have some fun fights in there, and I feel like it's going to be one of the better fight scenes in any movie out there.
Really?
Because we had myself, we had a bunch of fighters playing the other guys.
Yeah.
And
Did they ever ask your opinion on hey, if he was in this situation, what would he do? Is this the real way that a fighter would go about doing
100%.
this? Yeah.
But the fights that we did too, we took, bits and pieces, but it's what we were doing in there is everything that happened in the real fights.
Oh.
Yeah. And
so they were almost like, it's a movie, obviously it's scripted, but the fights themselves, you followed the events in real
they were scripted.
They were
far
scripted,
as like
yeah.
I got there two weeks early before we really started filming, and we went over stunt training, how to hit somebody without hitting them, and
wow.
This is how this fight is going to go,
Uh-huh.
and the next one, I had 4 fights in the movie, and so
I can see why Dwayne would be attracted to this project, because this mirrors a lot of like the WWE,
100%,
like
yeah.
what he came from, his
Yep.
background. It's exactly this.
Yeah, and he has 4 hours of makeup. He's got hair.
Does he? That's great. Well, I think I saw in an earlier picture they showed, I think, a picture from your production set.
Yeah.
I thought they did anyway. Obviously, so that's who The Rock is playing.
Yeah, he's playing Kerr.
Very cool. Okay, yeah, upper right hand corner. That's The Rock?
That's The Rock. I'm in the black right there. And then
Whoa.
Wow.
Cool.
Boss
Dude, look
Rutan.
at the makeup.
Yeah.
You're right. He's got hair.
He's got hair.
It doesn't even look like The Rock.
It almost doesn't.
He's
Yeah,
got
they sort of
a like
changed it.
prosthetic nose and everything.
Yes, you're right. Man, he has kept himself in incredible shape. Just
Yeah.
he's
big.
How old is he
Like
now?
52 maybe.
And I'm sure he's larger than life in real person.
He's big.
He's big. Yeah.
He's big. I'm not a small dude, and I felt small. Yeah.
His dad was a big dude.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Again, coming from his background, this film for him is incredible. Had you seen the documentary prior to getting the call for this film? I mean, were you familiar with who these people were?
Yeah, I know Mark Kerr and I know Mark Coleman, but I watched it way back in the day. I had to go back and watch it. For
Yeah,
sure.
so
Yeah.
to prep for it, that
Yeah.
was technically the only prep you did for the role, was to just watch the documentary again?
Pretty much. You know, he wouldn't even
amazing,
give me the script, like,
Really?
until I got there. He's like, I don't want you memorizing the script or words or anything like that. We're going to kind of like, you know what's going on. You can use your own words. You know, sometimes he wants, like, you know, what's in the script, you know, down and out. But usually he's like, do whatever. And he would change the script, I don't know, 3 minutes before. Like, we're walking into the room where we're filming. He's like, all right, I changed it. Take a look at it. And you're like, Benny, what the hell, dude?
Very,
you got to keep you on your toes.
very Ridley Scott. I mean, allowing
Yeah.
actors to kind of just, all right, hey, here's the scene, here's the
Yeah,
place,
and we could go. I mean, we could riff with it, you know, and sometimes we would get off, not even on a tangent, but, you know, we were playing off the other actor, right? And so it would be weird if I went back to the lines that were on, you know,
on
the paper when he's giving me something else, you know?
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. We got to flow with it. And so it didn't have to be so, like, box cutter, like, by the word, where some movies are.
You said Emily Blunt is also alongside the cast in this as well. Who does she play?
His girlfriend,
Oh, okay.
crazy girlfriend.
I love that for her.
Yeah, and
that's
she's
great.
awesome, man. She can turn it on. Like, there's, you know, I come into hospital or whatever, and she is bawling on command and runs up. I have to console her before going into the room and all that, and it's pretty impressive.
It is. When
Yeah.
you actually watch an actor perform,
I mean, she's like classically trained.
it's
for
different
the kid.
than
yeah.
When you see it go again and again and again and again, I don't remember who, but there was a video someone took of Shia LaBeouf doing that, where he would turn it on, then turn it off, and then turn it on, and just do it 6 or 7 takes in a row.
Yeah.
You're like, this is okay. This is an actual, like, a genetic skill.
Yeah,
it's
it
not
is.
something a normal person can just do. It is a skill.
So my first scene with her, I'm like, hey, Emily, and we talked a bunch before. I was like, be gentle, I'm a virgin. And she was like, no. She's like, no, I seen your first scene and the way you did this and weren't surprised and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm like, just trying to act. And in my head, I was like, dude, I was just trying to survive and get through that. I was just trying to get it done, you know. But it turned out all right, I guess.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Emily Blunt. That is not a small cast to be thrust into.
No.
That's like a big set, man.
So we had an emotional scene, right? And we're all kind of supposed to be crying and all that. And right before, he was like, I think there's just too many people crying. He's like, why don't you... You're like the strong one. Why don't you not cry? I'm
Dwayne
like,
said this to you.
No, the director.
Or the director said, okay.
Because they had like menthol crystals they're going to put in my eyes and all that. And like, I'm like, you might need bear spray. But I didn't have to cry on that one, you know, but everybody else was. And so that was the one I was like worried about and nervous about. It's a very big scene, emotional, you know, and, you know, I walked out of there. And I was like, one of the scenes where I was like, man, that went really good. The other ones I was like, I don't know. But we walked out and one of the producers was like, dude, you're doing an awesome fucking job.
Really?
I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, and you're doing it with one of the most popular, you know, people in the world with The Rock and the best actress in the world with Emily Blunt.
Oh, yeah. No,
You know, because
no
a
doubt.
lot of times you don't know how you're doing. I mean, Benny knows what he wants and he'll cut immediately when he gets it. And everything's shot. Like, he shoots really fast, and we never did more than like 4 or 5 takes.
And he's just watching the monitor as it's
I
going.
mean, he's
or
in that room. He has his
yeah.
iPad, and you know he knows what he wants. Once he gets it, you're done.
Wow.
And everything was pretty short, but you still don't know how you're doing. You know, so it was nice to have one of the producers be like, "Hey, you're doing an awesome job," and you're like, "Really?"
Bro, congrats. Seriously.
No,
that's
been fun.
Big time. There are people who go their entire life, their entire career in acting that never get a chance.
Oh
like
yeah,
that,
100%.
ever. So that's a big blessing.
No, thank you. That was
Yeah,
fun, and I lucked out having, you know, the cast and the whole crew that we did
Yeah.
because I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah,
right?
how were they? I
Awesome.
assume awesome. Yeah.
The whole crew, and then the director. You know, we became, you know, fast friends and go out to eat with him and his kids and stuff. And I was up in Vancouver for about 2.5 months. You know,
Yeah.
just solo. I'd come back. You know, I have wife, kids, but every once in a while, and then just in like a kind of little apartment hotel. And I mean, go. I get there at 11 a.m. Sometimes leave at 5 a.m. and Monday through Friday.
That's so cool, though.
Yeah,
man. It's
fun.
such a big accomplishment. What's next? What do you want to do? Are you're still going to fight? Now you're going to act? Are you going to do both together? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm open to different things. You know, I have one fight left, and I definitely want to do that. Then on the acting side, you know, it's wait till kind of this movie comes out.
When is it going to come out?
I'm not sure. I'm kind of guessing, but I was kind of told like December or early 2025.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
You know, and then we're in the process of getting kind of like a Hollywood agent kind of deal. That you know,
You're
Yeah.
getting an agent. Awesome.
my MMA manager knows a lot of those guys, and so gonna talk to them kind of next week, and then when the movie comes out, you could start fielding some offers or have them go out and find some stuff for you.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean,
do you have a preference on style? I mean, do you want to do action? Do you want to do drama?
I think a good action movie, you know, for the second one would be cool. You know, before you really get in, just get your feet wet a little bit more and get into that world a little bit.
It's too bad Gladiator 2 just right.
I know.
That would have been sick.
But the producers were like, "Dude, you're a shoo-in for action. You picked up all the stunt stuff really fast and all that." And he's like, "They're like, you should try to do a romantic comedy or whatever." I'm like, "Well, let's start with like a war movie or something first, you know, then we'll go from there."
There's been a few professional fighters, and I know, of course, professional wrestlers that have made huge careers, huge jumps into movies, and just made that, you know, the fighting and the wrestling was kind of an afterthought in their career. The Rock, probably the first and biggest one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But there's been several.
John Cena.
Yes.
Yeah, and then what's the other wrestler?
Batista.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably of everybody we just mentioned, Batista's probably the best actor, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
He has a very unique and powerful method. You wouldn't even who did was it Dennis Villeneuve did Dune, and he, in an interview, they asked him like, what's your opinion of like wrestlers and fighters coming on and being actors, and he's like, well, I've only worked with, you know, Batista, but I encouraged him early on. I'm like, okay, do not think of yourself in anything other than as an actor right now. You have an incredible method, and he does. He can really give. He's unique.
Yeah,
he's
definitely.
weird, and that's what you want. You want weird and unique. Yeah. So dude, either way.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. Something cool. You know, The Rock has a crazy. I wouldn't want that schedule as far as like he's going from one movie to the other.
No,
like
I
he's
wouldn't
going
want
to
that
go do Moana like right after this one, straight to Atlanta. You know. I want to kind of be like, all right, what's a cool project, and kind of pick and choose if I have that option, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows? I might not get anything. They might be like, you fucking suck. You stand in the back with a sword or something.
Or your phone might be ringing off the hook after this movie.
My guess is that
never
it's
know.
that. My guess is that it's that, man. It's like I said, anything unique and frankly weird has attraction to it. You're a niche, and I agree with you. I wouldn't wish for the kind of blockbuster leapfrog act that Dwayne does. I mean, of course,
I don't
want to
be. I don't want to be famous or anything like that. You know, I have.
You're already kind of failing.
I have like
at
a
that.
little bit of like people recognize you here and there, and that's enough, right?
Interesting.
And you're gonna get a little bit from this movie for sure because it's gonna be in theaters, IMAX, and all that. It's a one of a kind kind of movie too. But yeah, I'm not huge on the like I want to be famous. I want everybody to know. I'd rather.
This is interesting. What is your opinion on fame? Because you're certainly someone that you're just a recognizable figure just because of your size and you. What is it? Is it that fame is unhealthy? Can be unhealthy? What is your opinion on it?
I kind of think so. For me, is like I like good people, right? And I've never changed. Get a little bit of notoriety from fighting and this and that. Like, who cares? Like, if you're a good person, have good values, you treat people well, you know, you're good in my book. And I see a lot of people get a little bit of fame or whatever, recognition, and then all of a sudden they're like a different person.
Yeah.
I've seen that time and time again just being in the MMA world.
Yeah.
You know, and that weirds me out big time.
Yeah.
Other people's opinions, their time, they don't matter.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the kind of God
Like,
complex
status. Well, you know, I've only hang out with these, you know, blah, blah, blah. Don't give you time of day.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm actually super curious, kind of going back to the Ultimate Fighter and this fame and ego thing that probably is really prevalent in a lot of fighters. How much do you think the UFC was weighing people's personality and showmanship, and how much they were going to be kind of a spectacle
Oh, yeah,
more
big
than
time.
just a good fighter.
Big time now, even more so now. You know, it used to be a little bit like, all right, you're a good fighter. You could be very boring, but you're beating everybody. Cool,
Right.
whatever. And now it's like, who's the next big thing? Who's the next person, like a Conor McGregor, Michael
Yeah.
Bisping, whatever, that have a country behind them
Yeah.
and bringing that viewership. You know, what's, as much as they say, oh, we don't like it, whatever, what's the wild shit that can happen? You know, Conor throwing a dolly through a bus. And they're like, we condone that kind
We
of.
love that.
We condone that, but run it
Khabib
in,
jumping into
run
the
it in the
crowd.
marketing deal right before the fight.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the craziest card I've. That's the craziest fight and the craziest card I've ever seen. Still, is
Oh, yeah,
Conor Khabib that night.
but everybody's talking about it, and they, you know, you don't think that, you know, the UFC loves that.
Oh yeah, they're still
I
talking about
love
it. We're
it.
talking about it right
Love
now.
it.
How many more years ago was that? That was a long time ago now.
It's like 5 years now, I think.
Easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, drama may not be, you know, I mean, in my own words, drama is good for the brand and good for viewership
100%.
and good for just about everybody.
Yeah.
You know, who cares about the image? It's a professional
Ryan,
fighting.
you should
company.
go run over someone with your car or something.
Don't get it. Do a little rampage. But honestly, like they love that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like look at like the slap fighting, right? It's all about numbers, like
Oh.
marketing numbers.
Are you
social media
gonna
numbers.
tell me you're not gonna? Are you gonna do that?
No,
Are you
no.
gonna- no. I was like, oh, please don't do that.
Ryan, $5 million on the table. Would you go do it?
Fuck yeah.
There's a number. There's a number that'll get him there.
Fucking two, I will.
Dana, let's make it happen.
I mean, even like I'm not gonna say names or whatever, but like the bare knuckle boxing, right? You look at that, I'm like, I'm in this world, I'm like, man, this is fucking brutal, right?
Oh, you're watching him.
But
get,
one of my buddies, he was a UFC champion, and he's very respected for having crazy fights and all that. My manager called me. He was like, "Hey, so and so, thinking about doing bare knuckle." I'm like, "Really? Why?" And he's like, "Well, they're gonna pay him X amount." And I was like, "Well, shit, he's probably has to do that, right?" You know. But it's like these different opportunities now that are kind of out there, you know. And then with like Saudis and stuff coming into the game.
Yeah,
You know,
a lot
you
of
can
money.
go out and do some weird shit out. Not that weird, but I mean, you can.
You can.
But I'm just talking about like you can go do like a grappling match or whatever, and they just like having, you know, people out there that have a name, you know, and the karate.
we're talking
combat.
Dubai, like
Yeah.
overseas, and
Yeah, Riyadh, all that kind of stuff, you know, and so there's different opportunities, which is great, you know, with as far as like guy like Luke Rockhold, right?
yeah.
He was in the UFC champion, you know, and then he retired, right? But he's still making great money going out there he did karate combat, you know, he's doing a grappling event, all that kind of stuff, you know. So I like that there's different avenues for fighters to continue to compete while not like all in, kind of like you would be in the MMA world, like training camp, this and that. Like, oh, something cool pops up, train for it, go out there, have fun. Hope you don't get too injured or hurt.
Yeah.
Bring home a pretty big paycheck, you know, and I like that.
You've done a lot of work with military first responders, and I see a lot of that coming into the Ryan Bader brand has a close affiliation. I know Black Rifle Coffee, you guys have done some stuff together. Where does that come from? How did that find its way into your list of things that are important?
Yeah, I have a bunch of buddies that are special operation dudes, you know, top of the top, and I got to go out and do a lot of cool stuff with them. You know, I went out to the Navy SEAL land warfare class and got to do the whole week with them.
Like,
The whole deal, like live fire, the nods, the little sniper corps, all that kind of
cool.
stuff. And I was like kind of teaching them wrestling and stuff like in a couple hours a day. I've done a lot with the Green Berets, you know, over Fort Bragg. I think it's like Fort Liberty now. They changed it. But went out there. We go out there every year, you know, what we were talking about. We do a little shooting competition with them and been around those guys, and a lot of them are friends, and I'm part of an organization called Outdoor Experience for All. We get hunting tags that are turned back in Arizona, and we can, in turn, the ones that are turned back in, they can come to an organization like ours, and we can give them to 100% disabled vets.
Oh, wow.
And so that's kind of one of the more rewarding things that I do, you know, and just being able to help out a little bit. And, you know, we have guys looking forward to September every year, You know,
Yeah.
or, hey, you come
Elk.
back if we get a we'll get a tag for you. You know, and
for people listening who don't know, those are very hard to get, especially in the state of Arizona. Big game, especially elk.
20 years.
Some people, 20, 25 years, they wait to get drawn once. And sometimes almost never.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's very hard. How does a tag? You said a tag that gets turned back in. What does
so
that
if
mean?
if I've been putting in say 18 years, right, for let's say early 23, and they go by units, everything's a lottery. You can't just go out and hunt elk.
Yeah.
So 23 is a big elk unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so especially early archery, say I draw it 18 years, but there's been a big drought last couple of years. You know, the herd's not in good shape. There's not going to be what I anticipated.
Yeah. You've waited 18 years.
Yeah, you wait 18 years. You want to be the best of the best, right? So I can turn that back in and keep my bonus points and maybe get drawn next year. Or, you know, if I had 25 points or 23 points and I turned it back in, I'm going to draw next year.
Almost certainly, right?
Almost certainly.
For people who don't know, if you're waiting 18 years, you are accruing points,
Yeah.
even if you are not drawn.
So every year you get a point. So you waited, I think it's like 23, 24 years for unit 23. I know I'm going to draw. It's 100% draw next year. So I can turn that back in to Outdoor Experience for All, and then we can give it to a disabled vet.
Wow.
And they can go out hunting. And it doesn't mess with the guy's points that turned it back in.
Mm-hmm.
And so every year we take guys out, you know, around unit 22, 23, you know, 3C and all that. And sometimes we take out multiple vets. Like 2 years ago, we took out 4.
Whoa.
You know, and killed 4 bulls. You know, and what they get out of that is they come back, especially, you know, I mean, all of them. But when they come back and they're in this like fight or flight, redlining the whole time, then they come back and it's just regular life, right? And you're used to being over there, you know, with your people and doing weird shit, and then you come back, you don't have that like adrenaline spike anymore.
Yes.
And people don't know what you've been through. You're not around this like-minded people. You know, you come out to a hunting camp, you know, we're all kind of the same like-minded people. There's a mission out there. We're going to go out there and try to shoot a bull elk with a bow and arrow, you know, with a compound bow.
Which is one of the most
Which is hard.
adrenaline-pumping activities you can try to do.
You know, and then we get back, we'll cook dinner, we'll have a few drinks, you know, and a lot of times, you know, if we have multiple vets there, they'll start kind of talking, and it's almost like a little therapy session, you know, and I've been friends with almost every person I've taken out since then.
That's so incredible.
And like good friends, you know, and it's like I said, it's very rewarding for me. Yes, I get to go hunt and all that, but I get to see kind of a change in that vet mentally.
Wow.
You know, where they're kind of down. Maybe they don't have a good family life as far as, you know, maybe trouble in a marriage or whatever. You know, and they kind of vent and all that kind of stuff too. So it was kind of weird. I'm like, me of all people, I'm like, kind of became like a little pseudo therapist too.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just cool to see, you know, and they're excited for next year. You know, they have something to look forward to.
Yeah. Wow.
That's so cool.
That's amazing, man. That's a great program for so many reasons. You're meeting the needs of a demographic, like you said, that are coming back from something that most of us will never know what that's like.
Exactly.
It's very hard to put yourself in the place of somebody who served, especially somebody who served in a combat
100%,
situation.
yeah.
That does something to you. It changes your brain chemistry.
It does. And then you come back to a normal life.
And what? We're just supposed to...
What excites you anymore, right? When
Yeah.
you're kicking down doors with your buddies and, you know, your buddy saved your life, you saved his. Every night's action. You're creeping into a house and
Going outside the
and
wire
nods
and,
and
yeah.
you know. And then all of a sudden you're back and you're like, okay, cool.
Want to go to In-N-Out Burger?
Yeah, what do I do now?
What do you do now?
And then
Yeah.
what am I going to do for a job? I'm going to go sit in an office from 9 in the morning to
Yeah,
5?
it's almost like going from collegiate wrestling to B2B sales or something.
100%, right? There's a little more.
Yeah.
More struggle there, but
It was a stretch,
but I mean, honestly, like for me though, too, I realized right then and there I can't have a normal job.
right,
Like,
yeah.
I can never. You know,
Yeah.
my brain just doesn't work like that.
You experienced something.
Yeah,
Totally.
and I get penned up. I tell my wife, like, you got to take the dog on a walk or it gets crazy and chews up cushions or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I got to, and hunting is one of those deals where, all right, I have like a mission, I have this and that. I'm out there. I've never once in the woods been like, oh, I wish I was doing something else, and I'm stimulated all that. When I'm idle is when I get weird in the head.
Yeah.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're out there, your senses are so heightened. It's the same type of thing like for me with training. I need to have physical barriers that I can overcome daily. Like daily.
Yeah.
If I don't, I feel weird.
Yep.
Things start to get, I don't know, I can't think right, I don't feel right. I start getting ADD, like it's bad.
And I think purpose is a big deal too. Like I have to have a
yeah.
purpose, if I don't, I'm just kind of flying in the wind.
Yeah.
And I have to find that, so like the vet deal for me, selfishly too, it kind of fulfills that a little bit too. If I can go on,
Gives you a mission.
if I can go on 3-4 hunts a year with them, plus I have my own, plus I do a lot of different shit outside of that too, obviously, but, and just like the MMA, right? I always have a goal out there I know, but when I stop fighting, that's where I'm going to be like, what do I replace it with? Because for me, I'm like, okay, in at least like 4 months, I'm going to have a fight. I'm going to be training, and I have that goal or something in the future to look forward to. And that happens even right after I'm done. I'm like, cool, I can relax a little bit, like truly relax. And then on to the next, Yeah. So when that's taken away, that kind of gets squirrely.
Yeah. You're highlighting something that everyone needs to learn, and sometimes the hard way is that you always need to have something that you're looking forward to, something that you're working toward. And if you don't have something like that, well, that's probably why you're struggling with addiction, or you're down with depression, or you don't feel fulfilled. Those are the reasons why.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of those emotions. You need to learn to channel them towards something.
100%.
You need to learn to find your new mission.
And you got to learn how to actually take what you have and, appreciate it too, right? Because like I do a lot of cool shit, not just the fighting. Like I've got to do a bunch of weird shit. It's fun. It spikes your adrenaline and all that. But you get used to that too, right? And then you're like, all right, what's next? What's crazier? This and that, But for me, I have to appreciate like the day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Because that's what's hard for me when I'm like, all right, I'm used to like redlining all the time, and I'm just chilling with the family. I should be totally content, and I try to be, and I am, but I still am always like, okay, what's next? It doesn't help. My wife is like that too. We don't like sit around and watch TV. We're like, all right, what can we do?
Is she kind of like you?
Yeah, which is bad, I'm like, can't you chill? She's like, can't you? I'm like, no.
That's outstanding. So but then what do you, going off of that, because you've got the yin and the yang and everything in life, and you have to, for guys like us, and sounds like for your wife too, we have to find and intentionally set tasks in our lives where, okay, you know what? I'm going to breath work. You know what?
Yeah.
I got to go to a yoga class this week. I've got to get out into the woods this week. Do you have things like that in your life that turn the dial down by its design? Like what is that?
Yeah, I'm getting outdoors for me, is definitely, and I always know that I have that definitely in the fall, and I can find it in the spring too, because I go out and help buddies and stuff like that. But for me, it's like even planning it. My wife is like, during hunting season, she's like, you literally take 2 days to pack, and then you come back and unpack for like 3 days, like off and on. And this and that, and I'm like, but I enjoy it, right? I like planning it, and then I'm out there, I'm like, it's something different than the day-to-day stuff, so I love doing that. And even just like taking kids fishing or whatever, doing whatever, like that's my deal where I kind of reset, and like I'm even hunting usually is in the fall, and so I'm kind of even getting antsy now. But we have a vet, a good friend, Terry Hu, and he's got a 3C bull tag. We'll go out and scout this next month for him a little bit.
Heck
and stuff like that. So I like doing a lot of that stuff for sure. And last year I had a Wyoming elk tag, and I'm like, I'm going to go. And my brother-in-law came with me, and we drove 17 hours. We spent 4 days backpacking, staying the night, 10,000 feet, in the mountain, Wyoming range with grizzly bears and all that. And
love it.
Came back, and it sucked. It was hard. But 2 days later, it was the best experience you ever had. It's like a little reset.
Absolutely. That's the thing. People who haven't experienced it, hunting is never a bad experience, even if you're unsuccessful. It doesn't matter. There's so much more to it that people who don't do it don't
100%.
get. And especially hunting's been given a very poor rep by people who don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
man is meant to be in nature. Man is meant to be out there. That
Yeah.
is,
And it's not about the killing part, right?
No.
I mean, and that's what people don't
such
understand.
a small fraction of the whole thing.
The Game and Fish, department nationwide is actually one of the few very good government, whatever you call them,
Regulatory agencies. Yeah.
They do a really good job, and they only give out a certain amount of tags, and everything is, wildlife biologists go out there and make sure how many need to be taken out for the overall success of the herd, this and that, and it's very strict and everything. It's a lottery, like we were saying, it could take you 20 years for a good tag, this and that. So it's not about going out and killing. It's about being out in the woods, connecting, and then, the friendships and everything that you have while you're going out there and doing something hard too. Like any person that's never hunted, I have taken out, were like, man, I thought it was going to be completely different. That was so cool. And thanks for inviting me. When can we do it again? I love being out there, especially the hard ones that suck really bad when you're doing them. But 3 days later and years later, you still talk about it.
Talking about how bad it was, how tough it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the earliest memories I have with my dad was hunting.
100%.
That is, you do it with your kids?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that you're never really too young to learn about it, to go out and spend time doing it.
Yep,
To
just
just
tag
go
along.
out and tag along. It's it's why we've done it for so long. It's why human beings have generationally taught the generation beneath them to do that. This is not a bad transition to this topic.
Yeah.
What is the impact? I mean, you're a dad, you're a professional, you're doing all this other crazy fun stuff, and yet the importance of being a parent is something I've seen you talk about, post about, all that type of stuff. How does that weigh on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think about it a lot. Just kind of do it. I think it's one of the most important things we can do, especially this day and age, I think back in the day, people put like a more emphasis on family and parenting and, all that kind of stuff to a certain point. I feel like obviously kids are going to emulate you and watch what you do, how you react, how you treat people, all that kind of stuff. And my whole deal is set a good example, but be real at the same time. We don't really sugarcoat stuff around our kids. I mean, I'll cuss, whatever, blah, blah. And I think they have they're very socially aware and can blend in anywhere. And whatever they're spending the night or at school or whatever, they are, like, teachers are like, your kids are amazing. And I'm like, my wife and I are rolling our eyes, like, wait till they get, home, whatever. But that's fine. As long as they're respectful and everything around everybody else, like, I love it. But they're like little adults, so we treat them like little adults, And I think they learn a lot. And any kid, is going to learn from their parents, right? The good, bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, my deal is like set a good example. And then for me with like this whole fighting stuff and everything, it just, I want them to be proud, but I want to set an example. Like, you can achieve anything that you kind of corny, but you set your mind to. You wanted to go do something. My whole deal with the kids is like, you're not going to half-ass something. If you want to do it, it's worth all your time and effort to try to be the best at it or close to it. Give it a shot.
Yeah. Plan B has got to be reinforcing plan A.
Yeah.
You've got to have, that's always been one of the things that I not take offense to, but I always have issue when people are talking about a backup business plan, a backup plan really of any kind when it comes to something as important as raising kids or creating a business. It's like, it is such an incredibly difficult task to achieve this already.
Mm-hmm.
If
you have a fallback,
you're falling back on a plan. You're telling me already that you're probably not going to succeed at the one you're already working on. If you're already in your mind setting up plan B, you probably haven't given enough attention to plan A.
100%.
What is, when it comes to specifically raising young men, what do you see missing from today? You and I are both, everybody in this room really is old enough to see a shift and a change in that area. Where is that?
I think a lot of, look, not to like harp on the outdoor deal or whatever, but I think a lot of kids never get to experience that, right? And I think a lot of like young men these days don't do anything hard.
Well said.
It's not necessarily like a rite of passage, but like sports can give you that.
Kind of is. It always has been. Doing something really hard.
Definitely, give you that 100%. it's finding something like that where, you know, you can kind of push your kids, you know, without being that, you know, 1950s dad, you know, what we're talking about. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's like I see a lot of people now that have never done anything hard in their life.
Yeah.
And any inconvenience, however slight it could be, they have a meltdown.
Oh yeah.
Because they've never
Something as simple as a flat tire.
exactly. They've never went through anything remotely somewhat difficult. You know, so all shit hits a fan when anything comes along.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're not resilient or anything like that. You know, and that I do think that comes from, you know, the world we live in today. As far as like, you know, everybody has a phone in their little computer in their pocket and social media and this and that, and then that's fine. Like every kid's going to do that. Every kid's going to watch YouTube, this and that, but they can do that. But you have to, you know, take them out and be involved in their life. Take them out to do something hard. Take them out to go fishing. Take them out to go on a hike.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be hunting, fishing, and do whatever.
Something that sucks.
Give them a goal. Like
Yes.
go, yeah, I don't know. Go, never done it, but go down, hike to the Grand Canyon and back, whatever.
Yeah.
You
Have
know?
you ever done that?
No, I want to though.
We do too.
We want to do that.
Keeps
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
it, man. We should.
Yeah,
We should do
that'd be
rim to
fun.
rim. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Rim would be great.
I completely agree. Creating things, and even as a parent, sometimes, I mean, because as a young kid, the sort of default is, no, I don't want to do something that sucks. That
Yeah.
sucks. And as a parent, you're like, no, but we're still going to do it.
Yeah.
Because there's a life lesson in that.
So my parents are still together. All my grandparents are alive and still together.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Man.
But my dad had a construction business, and like, so in the summer I was working construction with him, and on the weekends it was like he always had a project, right? If we didn't have one, he'd just make one up. He's like, I think we should reside the house and whatever. So I'm always, yeah, was always
Really?
doing that. And then and I have a great relationship. They would drive me to California wrestling tournaments, but then, you know, he'd be like, I had to run 3 miles a week, and, you know, I had this route, and I had to go up this little mountain you could see from the house and come down or whatever. And one time I went to the park, and I stopped by, and my cousin and I stole a beer from my uncle's fridge, and we went and drank a beer in the park, and I just kind of walked back to the house and splashed some water on me. And I look up, his spotting scope was like pointed at the mountain.
No.
I was like, oh fuck. And he's like, how's the run? I was like, it was good. I was like, I had a bunch of stuff in my shoes, and I didn't want to run up the mountain, and you know, you kept me accountable and all that though. But you know, but then I look back and I'm like, yeah, I had fun with friends and all that, but it was like I was kind of doing that, you know, doing these little projects and stuff, and then my other friends in high school were like getting together, and you know, at that time too, smoking a bunch of weed all weekend, this and that, and like I could have went that way very easily, you know. But so I look back and I'm grateful for the way I grew up, you know, and my dad, and they're big into the outdoors, and we go hunting all the time too, and it was always hard. And so I look back now, and any little inconvenience, I'm like, oh, whatever, like we'll figure it out, fix it, whatever, you know, and just stuff like that, you know. 100%. If you ever go camping or whatever, for us, something happens with our flat tire, or the trailer broke every single time, right? And that's kind of fun for us. We're like, oh, cool, we're gonna figure it out, we're gonna fix it, and we're gonna carry on.
So
you know, where somebody else might be like, oh, this
no
whole
service,
thing's
no
ruined.
AAA, it's ruined.
Yeah.
Dad sucks.
Yeah.
Give me an Uber.
Give me an Uber out of here.
Give me an Uber.
So true. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Man. This was a
Seriously.
blast.
Yeah, we'll do it
Seriously,
again.
So much fun. We will do it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
A million %. Right down the road. I mean, we're gonna do a bunch of stuff.
Hell
man.
yeah.
I'm so excited.
Especially
Appreciate
after
you
the
guys.
movie comes out.
Yeah,
That'd
we'll
be crazy.
get back in here. We talk about it a little more.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
should
Yeah, give
definitely.
you the ins and outs of you know, the whole experience and all
Yeah.
that.
Million %.
I can't even post a picture right now. They won't let us do anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I figured it was probably pretty limited.
I got in trouble
on
for
what-
that Usyk picture that we have.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
I fight him at the end there, and then
And you
second-
posted
This
it
one?
no.
Another one.
So the
Top.
second one,
Second.
top middle.
Oh,
right there.
Yeah,
Got it.
because we're kind of in the arena where the on set,
Oh, I see.
and I made sure we didn't get anything, but I didn't get in big trouble. She's
They
like,
still kind of like, don't do that.
somebody else got in trouble.
I bet.
someone else got
Well,
in trouble.
they threw me under the bus, like Ryan posted something, whatever. And then the lady was like, well, he's a little higher in the acting world than you. And she told me that. I was like, really? Okay, say it again.
You like record.
Look,
you
I'm the number
recorded,
3 actor
yeah.
in this movie, bitch.
I can post what I want.
do what I want.
Excited, man.
That's so
It's going to be so
awesome.
cool.
It'll
Oh,
be
I know.
fun.
It looks great. It looks amazing.
Yeah, we gotta
Wow.
go see it as a team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really
Let's do
should.
it.
We'll make sure we do that. We'll do
Yeah,
it
you know
in
what's cool? The one thing, I'm sure I can say it, but as far as the IMAX, right? Just as far as this director being so cool and like talking about what we're talking about,
Yeah.
you know, not just giving up on an obstacle. IMAX was like, we can't do it. Shooting in 60 millimeter, and I don't even know what that means, but a lot of this was shot on film. They're like, we can't do it in IMAX. He's like, yeah, we can. Can I get a meeting in a week? And they're like, sure. And he goes in, brings a proof of concept, tells them about the project. They're all passionate about it. Shows them the concept and how you can do it, and they were like, we are in. And so he got IMAX like that.
That's
too.
awesome.
Yeah.
We'll have
For
to make
him.
sure we see it in IMAX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's meant for IMAX.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same as Oppenheimer was. They made that one for
And Dune-
IMAX as
Dune
well.
too.
Yeah.
One of the actors in there,
Yeah.
that's Benny,
Is
the director.
Benny, the director.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in.
He
Yeah,
was
he was
awesome.
awesome in Oppenheimer too. I went back and rewatched it after our first
Yeah.
conversation. I was like, I gotta rewatch this again.
Yeah.
He was really good in
He's
that.
good.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, guys,
All right, buddy.
we'll wrap it there.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank
Sweet.
you. Let's do it. Thank you guys so much for watching that episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. If you like the content and you want to see more of it, hit the like and subscribe. Activate that notification bell as well. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of it, we actually have the Becoming the 1% Instagram, and the podcast is available on Spotify. For our socials, we have Strict Vision Athletics on Instagram, we have it on YouTube, and we have it on TikTok.